About a month ago, I attended Overland Expo, and if you were there like I was, then you probably know you couldn't walk 5 to 10 feet without seeing someone ripping around on one of these guys right here. This is the Jackrabbit XG Pro, and it got me curious. With a bike so small, no pedals, hub motor, lights, everything that you would kind of know from an e-bike, what makes a tiny little package like this so great? Today, we're gonna find out. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Talon and I make new videos every single week. I'm bringing you almost back-to-back e-bike videos now because I found yet another one that might cross off a lot of my boxes. Like I mentioned, I saw these things all over Overland Expo in Flagstaff, Arizona, and Jackrabbit e-bikes was actually there, so I was able to demo basically any bike that they make, from the OG2, the OG2 Pro, the XG, and of course the XG Pro. I knew I wanted the best of the best, so we're jumping straight into a review of their top of the line bike, the XG Pro. Now on the surface, because this bike is so small, you think, that's like a kid's bike, and that is immediately where you would be wrong. This thing is packed with power and performance, equipped with a 749 watt rear hub motor delivering a 20 mile an hour top speed, which can actually be unlocked up to 24 miles per hour in their off-road mode. Much like other e-bikes that are unlockable, this is going to be reserved for people who are 18 and older, and of course you want to keep this on private roads, your own property and things like that, but check your local and state laws so you know what is legal where you live. When it comes to range, this thing is no slouch either. They have their dual 360 watt hour range buster batteries, giving you a total of 720 watt hours of power. And it offers an advertised pretty generous 48 plus miles of range. And since there are no pedals on this bike, it is really just thumb throttle only. I would assume that they are going to be pretty accurate with those details. This thing weighs in at just 37 pounds and it has a fold flat frame design that is actually FAA compliant, which makes it ideal for travel. On Jackrabbit's website, they sell a ton of accessories, one of them being an actual carrying case where you can throw this thing into a bag and fly with it. I can't think of any other e-bike that would allow you to fly with it. It obviously depends on the batteries. So that's a pretty cool touch. You're going to be able to bring this thing basically everywhere because of its small size. Now for some of the designs and features, the frame and ergonomics, it's built on a longer BMX style frame, I should say longer than the OG2, and it's made out of a 6061 T6 aluminum. Now standard with the XG Pro, you are going to get these high-rise handlebars, making it nice and comfortable, as well as these mega metal foot pegs, which easily flip up out of the way when you're ready to store this thing flat and throw it in the back of a vehicle. It seems like everything about this bike was really designed for being lightweight and portable, so you could change things out like the foot pegs and the handlebars, but we're just gonna leave that stock for now. Although there is a ton of aftermarket support for these things, a lot of people like to own them and then completely change them up and make them their own. Now in the front and rear, we have 20 by 2.8 inch tires, which provide a pretty cushioned ride since there is no suspension. And then braking is handled by a mechanical front and rear disc brake. We have a 180 millimeter front disc and a 160 millimeter rear disc. The controls and display are very simple, and I'm actually a pretty big fan of them so far. It includes a multi-drive mode, eco, mid, high, and that off-road mode that I mentioned. The LCD display is plenty bright and easy to read in bright sunlight. It also has an auto off mode. It also came with front and rear LED lights, which are also empowered by the internal batteries. And this thing has ergonomic grips and a thumb throttle. I actually prefer a thumb throttle as opposed to a twist throttle, and that's just personal preference. This bike came basically assembled just like this right here, and that is a huge plus in my book. I have set up so many e-bikes, and to be honest with you, it's kind of annoying. The only thing that I really had to do here was put on the lights, which is optional. It does ship with the bike, but you don't need to have those on there. You may be able to conserve a little bit of power if you opt to not have those lights on there, but I think aesthetically it makes the bike look pretty cool. We do have a little bell over here. to warn people when you are coming up behind them. And the only thing that I have changed that actually didn't come with the bike is this seat right here, or I should say the seat post. Since the only suspension on this bike really comes from the beefier tires, I opted for the Kinetic XR suspension seat post here. One of the units that I demoed actually had this on there, and I've never ridden a bike with a suspension seat post before, so I thought this was pretty cool. It ships with a few different springs in there, so you can dial it in for your own weight. Completely adjustable front and back, and of course that seat post still slides up and down. Now looking at this bike, you may still be thinking, that doesn't really fit you. For reference, I'm about 185 pounds, I'm about 5'10", and I may look a little bit silly riding this thing, but don't let its looks fool you. I can already tell you that this thing is going to be a blast, and now it's time to go for a ride. All right, what's the best way to kick off a video of a portable bike than showing its portability? This isn't the greatest example because this truck is huge, obviously, but you guys can get an idea of how this thing can pack almost completely flat. A lot of people look at portable bikes, and there are companies out there that make frames that fold in half, but then they double the size. They have super wide tires, and to be honest, they're not that portable. Not as portable as this thing. 37 pounds, really easy to move around, and set your kickstand up and you're almost ready to go. I probably could have fit this thing inside of my Corolla in the back because yes, it folds flat, but also it has a quick removable axle up here, so you can pop the front tire off very easily. So from this position, I didn't actually lower the seat at all, so I don't need to adjust that, but it's a quick release. Same thing with the handlebars. If I pull this quick release lever, the handlebars will then kind of rotate and click down into place. Just tighten that right back up, and now we're ready to ride. You want to make sure you flip your foot pegs down, no pedals obviously, and then to start the bike, just press and hold the power button for a couple of seconds. Screen lights up, and we're ready to go. For the controls up here, if I press and hold on the light button, that will turn on or turn off the headlights and taillights. The bottom button on here, that is how you cycle through the modes, eco, mid, and high. I did already unlock this bike, so it does have the off-road mode in the high setting. And then when you cycle back down, it doesn't go all the way back down to 0. It goes up progressively and then down progressively as well. So in the eco mode, you will notice that when I press on the thumb throttle, it doesn't move. There's actually a safety feature in 2 of the lower modes, so you actually need to kind of push off a little bit and then give it some thumb throttle, and then it will start to go. That'll prevent people from just hopping on this thing and taking off. Especially in the high power mode, this thing has a lot of power, so you want to kind of warn someone who's riding one of these for the first time. In the mid mode here, thumb throttle, again, you have to push off that little safety feature to get it going. However, in the high mode or the off-road mode, I don't have to push off. It will just go under a little bit of thumb throttle, and it is zippy. If you sit on this thing and just crank on the thumb throttle without realizing it, you're gonna pop the front tire up because the wheelbase is so short. So we're gonna start down in the eco mode, and we're gonna go for a cruise around this park here. So here in eco mode, I'm going full thumb throttle, and I got a little bit of a downhill here. There we go, now it levels out. We're doing between 12 and 14 miles per hour. And this is a great cruising speed. I believe this is where you're gonna get that 48 plus miles of range, and riding this thing for that long at that speed, I think it would take quite a while. So we'll probably end up popping it up in the high mode and then just go for a little cruise and see how far I can actually go on this thing. There are some mountain bike trails over here somewhere. There's a disc golf course. There's all kinds of stuff at this park. Ooh, mountain bike course. Not really a mountain bike, but we'll see how it does with a little bit of dirt, sand, a little bit of off-road. So I'm already gonna go up into the mid mode, so we have a little bit more power to go over maybe some of these obstacles that they have over here. Oh, That thing was like a seesaw. I thought it was just like a little jump. Now for my very first impressions, I actually got them when I tested one of these things out at Expo. First thing that I immediately noticed on this is that it rides surprisingly like a normal sized bike. Being that the wheelbase is so short, there's no pedals or anything, I thought the front end would be kind of squirrely in some situations. This is actually my first time taking it on any kind of dirt. And even on dirt like this, it still feels pretty planted. It doesn't feel like it's going to get squirrely and kind of like knock me off of balance. Having no suspension means that these tires definitely have to work a little bit harder, but with the suspension seat add-on that I put on here, it's honestly not terribly uncomfortable. I guess before we continue off-road, I should see what the top speed is in this mid mode here. Doing about 15, climbing up a little bit of a hill here. Brakes. The brakes work. This thing is super easy to like flick around, obviously, because it's so light. You just kind of hold the brake and kind of mess around with it. Almost like a toy, but in a good way. So it looks like we're getting about 15 miles per hour there in the mid mode. Now for the mode that I, of course, am going to be riding in the most, we're going to go up into the high mode. Not sure how these trails are, but we're about to find out. Oh, there's big drops over there. I ain't doing that with this thing. Are you kidding me? So immediate power in this higher mode here. Can we do something like this? This feels a lot more comfortable to me. Immediate torque. We're not going to be talking nerdy about the difference between cadence sensors and torque sensors and stuff like that because there are no pedals, obviously. Here's a pretty steep hill. It's climbing just fine. We're doing 9, almost 10 miles an hour up here. Woo! The front end definitely wants to come up on you. So you have to keep that in mind. You're going to be able to do some wheelies on this thing, that's for sure. From a dead stop here, if I just hit that throttle, it comes straight up, which is pretty cool. Now, before we check out more of these trails, let's go over here and do a little bit of a top speed test. I'm assuming with the off-road mode, 22, 23, yeah, 24 miles an hour already. Going downhill here, I'll probably go even faster. I saw 25 there for a second. No throttle at all. Ooh, I'm doing 28 now, just cruising down this hill. There's a little bit of a buzz out of the brakes because obviously the pads are probably just wearing in now. I only put about 5 miles on this bike because I wanted to ride it a little bit before I gave you guys like this entire video. And I unfortunately had 2 flat tires. I was riding on off-road areas like out by my house, and there are a ton of goat heads. There shouldn't be goat heads around here because people mountain bike here all the time, but I had a bunch of spikes in both of the tires, so I replaced both the tubes with just some cheap replacements, but I think they might be a little bit more heavy duty. If you ride out west, you guys know how common goat heads are, so something to keep in mind. This thing is so zippy and very easy to turn, obviously, with a short wheelbase. I do notice the suspension seat a lot too, just like sitting down on the bike, but then soaking up all of these little bumps too. Going 24 miles an hour up a hill here too, down to 23. Power feels good though. Not a whole lot of like lag or sag. Man, they really built this little park up here. We might have some fun on this little thing today. I was not really prepared for a bunch of off-roading, but I do have a helmet on and gloves, so let's dive in here and see what people have made. So this is going to be a big suspension test here. And when I say suspension, I mean the tires, because I'm not going to be sitting down on the seat going over this stuff. Woo! Ooh! It feels weird jumping when my feet are right next to each other like this. I'm used to having like a splayed out stance, obviously, when you're on like a proper mountain bike, but standing straight up and down, it's like, I don't know, it's almost like a pogo stick, I guess. That's going to take a little bit of getting used to. But man, this little thing rips. Woo! Here's a big climb. I'm not even at my top speed. Can we do it? Oh, almost. I'm not gonna knock the bike for that. This is a really steep hill here, but it weighs nothing, so I can push it right up to the top. I might have to run that section a few more times. That is pretty fun over there. You can very easily like bunny hop and hop around with this bike, which makes it really fun too. We're just gonna run this again, because why not? Woo! Oh man, this already has me thinking about ideas for like different tires that I could run on this. Nothing wrong with these tires right now, but having something a little more dirt oriented would definitely be fun for something like this. Could probably clear that as a double, but I don't want to wreck myself on this thing. Let's see where this goes. Man, it is super easy to just like hop over stuff like these little logs. All you have to do is lift your front tire, which is pretty much effortless. It rides like a normal bike, but with the characteristics of like a kid's bike, if that makes any sense. I don't know. What else do we got over here? Surprisingly not bad for like no suspension. Of course, you're gonna be doing a lot of standing since you're not really pedaling, and I could raise the seat up a little bit if I wanted to, but just going over little stuff like this right here. Boop. It's like a mountain bike, but not a mountain bike. Significantly cheaper than a nice mountain bike, by the way. A lot of people like to kind of complain about prices on e-bikes and stuff like that, and I think those are the people that don't know how much proper mountain bikes cost. Oh man, if I was comfortable on this thing, could be sending those little jumps right there. Just being a little bit cautious right now. Ooh. The short wheelbase and like how small this bike is kind of tripping me out a little bit, because especially when you get this thing up in the air, I'm waiting for that rear tire to come down, but because it's like so close to being right under where I'm sitting, just feels different. Climbing up these little switchbacks though, off-road mode has plenty of power for that. Oh, here's that big drop. Nope. Oh, that one's not. That's just a roller. This one, though? 50,000 likes on this video, and I will take the Jackrabbit off of this jump right here. Please don't do that. That'll never happen, but you never know with the internet. Woo! So originally, I thought I was gonna say that the brakes are not very adequate, because for an e-bike, even though it's a small one, I would typically want hydraulic brakes, but so far these actually feel okay. We'll see how they get once they kind of break in a little more and heat up a little bit. Should probably go out and just do some like normal cruising, but these off-road trails are super fun. Let's see where this way goes. I mean, this thing is climbing hills, most hills, with little to no problem at all. And this is kind of like extreme case. You're not gonna buy a bike like this to only go ride off-road with. I mean, maybe you will. Who am I to say, but can we make it up this? That's a steep one. I think we can do it though. Come back here, get a little bit more speed. Yeah. Made it. I keep like trying to find my feet to like find out where pedals would be. I'm just so used to normal pedaled bikes, but it's kind of nice not having pedals for a few different reasons. First one would be for basically just like ease of rideability. You're not going to have to pedal this thing. Maybe you have weak legs or something like that. You can kind of think of this thing sort of like a scooter. But then the best thing in my opinion is that there are less moving parts. There is virtually no maintenance with an e-bike like this, because you don't have to take care of a chain, you don't need to grease it and keep it clean. There's no crankset, so you're not going to run into any issues there. Other than keeping this thing clean, charging the batteries and maintaining those, and then an occasional tire or tube swap, there's like virtually no maintenance other than that stuff there, which is pretty cool. We are up to 3.4 miles now, and I'm gonna cruise on this path for a while in the fastest mode. I'm doing 24.8 miles per hour now. They nailed it with that top speed advertisement. We're gonna see how far this thing can go, and keep in mind, no pedals, so I don't want to get stuck out here. I could just push the bike back, but there's no emergency case of pedaling yourself home if the bike dies. All right, 5 mile check-in, doing a little bit of off-road and then mainly 20 to 24 miles per hour after that on this beautiful bike path out here. Battery is still at full bars. Battery indicator is right here. We have 4 different bars of battery, and we have some rain over there, the Rocky Mountains. So hopefully, again, I don't get stuck out here. If you're in the market for a commuter style bike and you're commuting like around a city or maybe some bike paths like this thing already feels great. Even if you're in like a crowded city, and let's say New York City as like an extreme example, it's so easily maneuverable. It's really small. You could fit it in elevators, and you can fit it up in places like an apartment. It takes up little to no room, and that's going to be a huge selling point of a tiny little bike like this. The suspension seat definitely feels great. I really don't have to stand up when I'm going over any bumps that I may encounter. It would be maybe a little bit tough if you just had the regular seat post on there. I feel like this is something that should actually come standard on the XG Pro, but with all of the different modifications that you can do to this bike, there are a lot of different possibilities where I've seen people actually swap the front forks out and put suspension up there. There's a lot of different things that you can do to make this thing ride good in the situations that you want to be riding it in. I think this type of riding right here is where most people are going to be riding a bike like this. Shout out to the Jackrabbit marketing team too, because them being at Overland Expo is what made me want one of these things in the first place. You're walking like 10, sometimes 20 miles a day at a place like that. So I could just have this thing low in eco mode, cruise through some crowds and be comfortable while doing it. You pull up and you want to talk to someone, you're already sitting down. You could sit there and have an hour-long conversation and be comfortable the entire time. And since it's so portable, like I said, you could put it in basically any vehicle. I think this is going to be the bike that I bring with me to the next expo. This thing is still zipping. All right, exactly 10 miles in, I just had this thing pinned full throttle in the off-road mode for the past like 3 miles, doing 24, almost 25 miles per hour when there's a little bit of downhill. This thing is sick. Haven't lost a bar of battery yet, but I am getting closer to this storm. So I think this is where I'm gonna turn around and hopefully find my way back. Tires and everything still feel good after I replace those tubes, so we're just gonna keep on trucking. See how far this thing can go in off-road mode. I feel like it shouldn't be able to go this far already, but we'll see. Oh my gosh, 20 miles in, and I thought we would be at least half battery, maybe even lower than that, but this thing just keeps on going. It's crazy. 20 miles in on a tiny little bike like this, and you would think that you would be uncomfortable, but with the high-rise handlebars, the ergonomic grips on here, you can really hold your weight up there. The suspension seat, that in my opinion is a must. The saddle itself could be maybe a little bit cushier, but with the addition of that, I mean, I feel like I could ride for another 20, and I think this bike has it in it. The weather right now, as you can see, does not. So I'm back at the mountain bike area, and We'll see how being 1 bar depleted on battery changes the off-road performance. You would think that riding in the highest mode possible would significantly decrease the range, and I'm sure it does to an extent, but I've already done 20 miles and could probably easily do another 20 more. Let's take it to at least half of the indicated range. Still giving me what feels to be almost full power. I think the motor has gotten a little bit hot after just cranking on it for miles and miles on end, but the power, woo, is still there. It feels good. All right, time for some redemption on this hill climb here. Even with less battery and a probably warm motor. Oh, it's so long and steep. Not quite. I bet if I got a run at that with full battery, could probably make it. But again, are you buying a bike like this to do things like that? I don't know. Ooh, downhill section. Do I want to ride down those? Ugh. It's so weird on a short wheelbase. And back to little swoopy jumps. Woo. Definitely getting more used to kind of jumping this thing now. Having my feet directly side by side was a little strange at first, but getting the hang of it now. One thing is you don't have to worry about pedal strike when you're passing rocks and stuff like that, so that's cool. And no maintenance, obviously. About 21 miles, and now we are down to half battery. So in theory, I could probably do 40 in this off-road mode, riding all of this stuff that I have been. Pretty nuts. Woo. Woo. Now we're clearing them. So at half battery life, this is typically where you will feel a lot of sag, and then even more so when we get lower. Still feeling all right though. All right, I think we got one more lap here before this rain sets in, so let's make it a good one. Woo! Woo! Oh my gosh. This thing is sick. All right, back to the truck. All right, 23 miles in, but it is not raining yet, so I'm not gonna give up on you guys. We're just gonna do laps around this park and see what the total distance can be in the fastest off-road mode. I might even get wet for you guys in the name of e-bike science. Well, if my camera is still alive and recording, I think we have finally depleted the little Jackrabbit XG. It was giving me full power for 4 bars of battery, full power for 3 bars of battery. When I got down to 2 bars of battery, it was pretty much full power, 24 miles per hour, up until maybe halfway through that. Towards the end of the second bar, only 2 remaining, it was dipping down to about 20. And then once it dropped down to 1, it was about 18 miles per hour. And now I'm still full throttle, just did a couple loops around the parking lot. And I'm gonna say that is the range. Full power mode, off-road mode, 24 miles per hour. We did a total of 31.5 miles. 31 and a half miles on this tiny little thing. Oh man, so sick. That is a huge range to ride a tiny little bike like this, but held up great. Still pretty comfortable, although once I got to like 25, closer to 30 miles, I was getting a little bit sore. I think a cushier saddle would be nice, but this rain is about to hit right now, so Let's get this thing loaded up. Flip up the pegs, quick disconnect on the stem, twist those, and then you can lock it back into place. You could take it a step further and remove the front tire and wheel if you would like, but we don't really need to do that. Just gonna back it in here and lay it down like that. All right, time for some final thoughts. So I wasn't exactly sure what to expect with a tiny micro package like this, but this thing was absolutely awesome. If you made it all the way through this video, you probably saw my excitement throughout. There are so many good things about this little bike, so let's talk some pros and cons. Let's first talk about the pros. You heard me talking about them this entire video. One, the speed and the power output. This thing is phenomenal, especially for a bike this size. 24 miles an hour is probably the top speed that I would want to go on a bike this size. Anything faster than that, like when I was going downhill, I got a little bit hesitant because, again, we're working with a tiny package here. And then you add the range on top of that. In the full-blown off-road unlocked mode, I was still able to go almost 32 miles, which is absolutely insane. I think they're right on the money with their advertised range, and you could even extend that. I haven't showed you guys this yet, but all you have to do is remove these little clips down here, and then you can lift the batteries straight out of it, kind of like that. You could carry an extra range buster battery. You could bring 2 extra range buster batteries, and you could really make this thing last for a full day of non-stop riding. These are also hot swappable too, so I think you could actually do this while the bike is on if you wanted to. And that makes the possibilities pretty much endless with this thing. And then there's the portability of it all. Of course, you can turn the handlebars, you can remove the front tire entirely, or you can pull the stem off and then flip the tire around. You can lower the seat stem all the way, flip these up, and essentially this is how it would store in one of those bags. Again, this thing is FAA compliant, so you can actually fly with a bike like this. It's super fun to ride, and it is capable off-road, as you guys saw. Towards the end there, I was getting pretty comfortable, and even when I was just like letting this thing run out of battery, I went back and hit some jumps a few more times. So the customization, how small and compact this is, there's just a lot of good things to say about it. Now the cons would come down to the price. Everyone likes to complain about price, and with a bike this size, I can kind of understand it. The Jackrabbit bike lineup starts at about $12.49 and goes all the way up to $22.49. That would be for a bike like this, the XG Pro, with all of the bells and whistles, the super long range, portability, and all of that. Originally, when I saw the price, I was like, oh man, there are a lot of other bikes that are comparable to that offer more as far as top speed goes and suspension and things like that. But a lot of those other bikes that you would compare it to are also not incredibly portable. They are not super lightweight. This thing is 37 pounds and the other ones are about 25 pounds. You can lift this thing up, throw it around, and it makes it super, super fun to ride. And then if you compare it next to like a mountain bike, like I mentioned earlier, to get yourself into a decent mountain bike, they are pretty pricey, I'm not gonna lie. You're looking at least $3,000 to $5,000 to get into something kind of entry, and then if you go up to a nicer model, you're looking at $10,000 plus for everything that you might want on a mountain bike. So price is all relative, that's why I don't like talking about it much, but I think this thing is priced accordingly. However, for some of the cons with that price, in my opinion, for the price of the XG Pro, I would like to see hydraulic disc brakes. These didn't let me down at all. However, since this bike can go 24 miles an hour, any faster than that, I would definitely want hydraulic brakes. And since this is the best of the best that they offer, hydraulic brakes would be a huge upgrade. Another thing is the kinetic suspension seat. I would like to see something like this standard on their top of the line bike like this. That made my riding today much more enjoyable, and I think you guys would really dig this too. This will work on any of their models as well. I think maybe some different tire options from them would be cool, possibly even like a heavy duty, almost puncture resistant tube. Then I would really feel comfortable taking this thing everywhere off-road, and these are the areas that I'm at right now where there's a ton of goat heads, so I'm not going to ride off the trail here. At the end of the day, this thing is an absolute blast. I could talk about it more and more, but I'll let you guys decide. Is this something that you would want to take for a spin? I know I'm definitely going to ride this a lot more. I always talk about doing more e-rideable videos and things like that, bringing some of the bikes that I have with me on adventures. This one takes the top slot for that. This is the easiest thing to bring around. When it folds flat, it's only about 7 inches wide, and I could just strap it to the side of my truck. So there should be no reason that I wouldn't bring this thing with me on some future adventures. And I'm sure you guys will see it. Definitely going to be bringing this thing to the next expo, and hopefully Jackrabbit is there, because I'd love to see some of the new stuff that they're doing. So that is all for this video. If you guys have any questions on the XG Pro, let me know in the comments down below. Relevant links will be found in the description. And if you are new to this channel, consider clicking subscribe. I make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. Look, it works again. Talk to you in the next one.